All right, in today's lesson, we're looking at three-dimensional figures. We've been looking at two-dimensional figures the past couple of lessons, and today we're going to look at what's the difference between a 3D shape and a 2D shape. So the first thing you probably need to know is that a three-dimensional figure has length, width, and height. So before, our others just had the length and the width, or just had the height. These have the length, width, and the height, all three together. Go ahead now and do your problem of the day. This is talking about 72 inches being compared to 2 2/3 yards. This is something you would have done with Mrs. Higgins last week when you did measurement. So what I want you to remember, I'm going to give you some big hints here to help you figure out the answer. I want you to remember that 72 inches would be the same as 6 feet. And I also want you to remember that the 2 2/3 yard, let's see if I can do a fraction, 2 2/3 yard would be equal to 8 feet. So hopefully these big hints will help you finish problem of the day. All right, we're going to go ahead and look at some three-dimensional shapes. You can see I have a bunch of 3D shapes over here. We're going to start by looking at a cube. A cube means that all the sides are the same, the width is the same, the height is the same. So if you look at it, it's kind of hard to see. But first we have what we call a face, and it's not like your beautiful face that I see each day when I'm in class. It actually would be any of the flat surfaces. So you need to know that a face is a flat surface. This is one of our vocab terms for this unit. So any face, this one actually has a bunch of different faces. I just pointed to this one with my sloppy little arrow. Up next, we have edges. Those would be the little corners here. I'm going to try to draw a straight line. Nope, not too straight. This right here would be what we call an edge. And an edge means that it's a line segment where, I'm having a hard time typing, where two faces meet. So you need to know that that right there is the edge, and that is where two faces meet. We have several different edges here, but it's where two faces meet. And then the last one that we're going to look at on the cube is right here. I'm just going to do one dot. I'll actually make it a bigger dot so you can see it. Oh, that might be a little big. Right here, and this is what we call the vertex. And it would be where multiple edges meet. So the point where all of the edges come together would be called the vertex. So these three terms kind of help us identify our 3D shapes. The next vocab word we're going to talk about is base. I like to think as the base is what an object can sit on. Some shapes, like a sphere, it wouldn't have a base because it can't actually sit on any parts. Your book actually defines a base as two parallel, congruent, I spelled parallel wrong. Parallel, congruent faces. So that means it would be two faces that actually match each other. It's hard to see in a picture, but like it would be the top part and then the bottom part because they're parallel. They'll never touch and they face each other. I always like to think of the base more as what the object sits on. So Miss Rutledge's definition would be what the object can sit on. So if I was to set an object on the table, this would be something that it could sit upon. Up next, we're just going to go through some shapes and make sure you know what their names are. This is a sphere. A sphere actually won't have any of those edges or vertexes that we talked about. It does have one face, which would be the whole thing because it's one big part. Up next, we have a pyramid, just like the pyramids that you would see in Egypt. Pyramids always meet at the top. Some pyramids might have 5 edges, some might have 4, but this would be a pyramid. It does have one base on the bottom. A cone would be this shape. It's where it comes to a point at the top, but the bottom is a base. It only has one face as well. It has one edge, which is the bottom edge down here, and it has one vertex, which is this little point up here. Up next, we have our cylinder, which has 2 bases on top and bottom, but then it's round around the middle. So there's your cylinder. And then, of course, we have the cube and the rectangular prism. Rectangular prisms can look many, many different shapes and sizes. This is just one example. Okay, now up next, we're going to look at 2 different prisms. One's a triangular prism because the top is a triangle. One's a rectangular prism because the top is a rectangle. They want to look at which attributes and the prism number that it matches. So if it has 5 faces, we would count each of the sides or the flat surfaces and figure out which prism number it would be. So if I look, this one has 1, 2, 3, and then 4 on top, 5 on bottom. So this one, the prism number would actually be 2, prism number 2. If I count this one, it has 1, 2, 3 on back, 4 on side, and then 2 on top and bottom. So it actually has 6. So that one we wouldn't be able to count. I'm going to have you go ahead and fill in the rest of these. See if you can figure out which prisms. We'll check it tomorrow in class, so just do your best and see what you come up with. And that is it for your video tonight.